5 years ago, the Johnson family was destroyed in their villa, all because the head of the family, out of his kindness, decided to save a little girl, thereby offending influential people in the capital. Only one child wanted to fight back, but the boy accidentally survived by falling into a deep lake. Now, 5 years later, Michael Johnson has acquired enormous power, capable of instilling terror by summoning ghosts and spirits into the real world. He returned to shed blood and avenge his deceased relatives. A girl walks through the heavily urbanized city of New York, full of cars and people. Then, for some reason, she is stopped by a guy she doesn't know until that moment. The girl turns around and sees a guy who tells her that he sees her soul turning black and predicts a bloodbath today. He justifies this by saying that it would be better to shed a little blood now to prevent worse consequences. The heroine is very surprised by what he said, asking again, as if trying to ensure that she didn't hear it wrong. She then calls the guy a dirty pervert, refuses to date him, and walks off into the sunset. The guy reflects on the fact that he was just making a kind remark, yet he was already called a pervert. How quickly women have changed in New York, but in the end, this is not Chicago. Then Michael remembers that he was born into a happy family, but his peers always mocked him for belonging to the Johnson family. But 5 years ago, it all ended because his father decided to save the little girl. One high-ranking person didn't like this, and a few days later, during a banquet at the villa, the Johnson family was destroyed. Only Michael survived. All the family's friends did nothing. They just stood and watched the tragedy unfold. Michael was very angry at the killer of his family. He vowed to kill him no matter what. However, the boy's attack was unsuccessful, and the rich man only laughed at his foolish attempt. In the end, his mother miraculously managed to push the child into Lake Newark, where the master saved him and took him to Chicago, giving him the ability to summon ghosts and spirits. Now the master has given Michael the task of returning to New York, and he vowed to take full revenge. After his memories, the guy feels that his body doesn't move, and due to the oppressive atmosphere, it becomes harder to breathe. He then notices the spirit he assumes is to blame for these feelings and captures it. Passers-by on the street feel something strange, but cannot understand what exactly is happening. Michael understands that before carrying out his revenge, he must first complete the task assigned to him. Apple is one of the 500 largest companies doing business in New York. 3 days ago, the old man found out that trouble would befall Sarah Walsh within 100 days, after which she would most likely die. The old man mentioned that he had some connection to her grandmother. Perhaps Sarah was his granddaughter. At the entrance to Apple, Michael Johnson is stopped by security guards. He wonders if they know a person named Sarah Walsh. The guards indignantly ask whether he has an appointment with the mentioned lady, to which he declares that he has a very important matter and needs to meet her in person. The security doesn't want to let him in and doesn't believe him, telling Michael to leave immediately while he's still alive. The guy uses his strength and makes the guards fall to their knees in panic. The main character turns everything into a joke for those around him and goes about his business. He sits in a comfortable pale yellow chair in the organization's lobby and orders to call the chief to him. People start to panic. Something strange is happening. Michael is confused. An armed detachment bursts in and then encircles young Johnson. The head of security approaches the guy and threatens him with consequences for entering this office. Michael, in a rage, repeats everything he told the security earlier. The head of security senses that something is wrong with the guy, and he is very strong. So he caves in and says that Sarah is not in today, but Michael can leave his contact details. The hero pretends to believe that his goal is not in the workplace, and therefore resigns himself to his fate. But he immediately states that he still has nothing to do, so he can sit there all day, indifferently sending the squad to rest. The chief security officer is confused. He understands that he will lose his job if he doesn't drive Michael away, but he cannot do anything about it. Then he changes his mind and orders his men to seize the young man who broke into Apple. A pretty girl in heels appears and orders the security to retreat. She attracts the attention of those around her and turns out to be a director named Jessica Nightingale, whose beauty can only be matched by President Sarah Walsh. The security officer tries to warn the headmistress about the danger, but she brushes aside his words like an annoying fly. Jessica introduces herself to the intruder and asks how she can help him. Michael peers at the director, and some images from the past begin to flash in his mind. He recalls that Jessica was his desk mate in elementary school and that they had a great relationship until middle school. Johnson again falls back into the events of 5 years ago, seeing his return to the already sealed house after the incident. The whole city turned its back on his family, and an assassination attempt was made on his father's company. All of New York was at the mercy of one man. Despite the pressure from others, Jessica endured all the rumors and buried his parents on the mountain, placing a tombstone. Michael did not think they would ever meet again. Now he feels obliged to thank her somehow. Coming out of his memories, the guy finds himself too close to the girl, which she delicately hints at. Jessica repeats her question, to which the guy replies that he has seen her somewhere. She feels embarrassed and mentions that this is an old-fashioned way to start a conversation. The girl decides to end the discussion and, despite the clerk's protests, asks them to leave the guy alone and stop making so much unnecessary noise. Michael notices that Jessica has changed a lot since their last meeting, especially in her figure. He resolves that his priority now is Jessica, not Sarah. Director Nightingale gets into her sleek, expensive car, and then she notices Michael in the back seat, where he shouldn't be. The guy casually starts the conversation, as if this is how everything was supposed to happen, completely ignoring the girl's confusion. She doesn't understand what he is trying to achieve, or how he even ended up there. Michael sweetly announces his desire to go for a ride with Jessica, again disregarding her bewilderment. The girl embarrassingly asks if he was waiting for someone, but he responds that it's not important at all. Slightly irritated, the heroine insists that she cannot allow a stranger to sit in her car, so he needs to introduce himself. Michael states that he is ready to give his name while simultaneously sensing darkness and a bloody trail from her soul, foreshadowing a significant event, and then shyly gives his name. In downtown, a grand, beautiful building that every office clerk would love to work in is bustling with activity. Jessica appears at a banquet with Michael, wearing a chic dress that accentuates her attractive figure. All eyes are on her, and everyone wants to know who she is and what kind of guy has come with her. They sit down at a large banquet table, surrounded by whispers that the director has never brought a man over for the evening. Wealthy men quickly gather around her, eager to know her better. Michael remains meaningfully silent while Jessica tries to keep the attention focused on herself. Everyone offers Mrs. Nightingale a drink, which makes her quite embarrassed. Michael intercepts the glass meant for his companion, wondering how many glasses she needs to drink. Those who had recently interacted so nicely with Jessica are outraged by the intervention of some unknown beggar. Michael does not ignore the insults, smiling sarcastically. The director takes the glass from him, demonstrating her control over the situation. Jessica touchingly admits that she doesn't know how to drink wine, asking if she can just have one sip. This does not go unnoticed by her newly acquired admirers. A man with a bottle of wine, standing out from the crowd with his charisma, appears and asks if one sip won't be enough. Jessica, straining to hold herself together, recognizes him as Raphael Burke. Everyone around begins gossiping about the influence of this young man and recalls that the last time Nightingale threw a glass of wine at Burke, he became furious. Raphael angrily declares that Jessica must drink the whole bottle to atone for her previous incident. He makes it clear that this is not a request but an order. The mistress tries to escape the situation by insisting on just one glass, claiming that she will cause trouble for others if she doesn't. She remembers that she threw the glass at him that time because she thought it contained drugs. Raphael, approaching her dangerously close, informs her that he has already booked the presidential suite, assuring her that she will have a place to rest and should not break down. Jessica is afraid there might also be drugs in that suite, so she doesn't dare to drink. The aggressor flares up in his displeasure, hurling filthy names at Jessica and hinting that even Sarah Walsh is drinking tonight. Sarah reflects tearfully on her situation, realizing that compared to Raphael's power, she means nothing. Michael intervenes, stepping between the two and taking Raphael's bottle away, leaving him in a state of angry confusion. Burke curses at the hero, who responds instantly by hitting him on the head with the bottle, causing it to shatter into pieces. The former abuser complains of pain in his head like a small child. Michael responds to his complaints by saying it is rude to force a girl to drink. Everyone is shocked by what just happened to such a highly respected person. Someone remarks that the guy won't see tomorrow morning since he has gone against the Burke family, one of the most influential political families in New York. Jessica begins to plead with Raphael to spare her friend, promising to drink any wine in any quantity, understanding the consequences. In a fit of rage, Raphael curses at Jessica and strikes her in the face, warning her that they will have significant problems today. Burke continues to threaten, but young Johnson interrupts him with a sharp kick to the groin. Raphael, crumpled on the floor in pain, vows to kill Michael, calling him a bastard. The main character flares up with hatred and slams the enemy's face into the floor, declaring that he will see which of them dies first. Many significant-looking men in black glasses appear, disapprovingly observing the scene, trying to intervene. The man standing in front, growing angrier, repeats that Michael must let his victim go. Onlookers report that this man is the head of the Burke family and the father of Raphael, which means Johnson is finished. Next to the head of the family stands a strange man with a long beard and an inscrutable gaze, most likely a legendary warrior. Jessica realizes that she and Michael are in huge trouble, while Raphael calls for help from his father. Johnson releases the arrogant rich man with demonstrative indifference. The handsome and charismatic Raphael rushes to his father like a coward. The ancient warrior also possesses some secret power like Michael, but shows no emotions. Little Burke begs his father to punish his offender for taking Jessica from him. The father, furious, orders his pathetic son to shut up and get out of there, which surprises Raphael greatly. The head of the family inquires about the origins of the young man from the same warrior named Jack Larson, addressing him personally while Burke's son hides behind him. Larson reports that Michael also has power, and due to his youth, it is easier for him to activate it. The main character listens with feigned indifference, wondering what else they have to say and what they want to achieve. The dishonored head of the family sets his warrior against Johnson, telling him to leave the body if he asks for mercy. The legendary warrior warns the hero that he should not have gotten involved with someone like him and begins his attack. Quickly approaching, the old man recommends that the young man beg for mercy. Michael, indifferent, responds to his enemy, while Jessica, in confusion, wonders if this is really the same ancient warrior in front of her. Young Johnson, with complete indifference, grabs the old man by the top knot of his hair, asking if the family has prepared a coffin for him. The old man experiences an indescribable range of emotions from the boy's audacity. Jack Larson's eyes flash with blue flames as he makes a sharp lunge towards his opponent, intending to deliver a crushing blow. Michael dodges the attack effortlessly, leaving the warrior confused by his lack of control over the situation. The main character, using his advantage, delivers a crushing blow right to the face of the legendary warrior. With the power of Michael Johnson, the ancient warrior is finally and irrevocably defeated, slamming into the floor, and the main character complains about the old man's dishonorable attack. Everyone around is shocked by what they have just witnessed and is left in a stupor from the shock they have suffered. Michael asks with absolute indifference who will be next. Father and son are stunned by how their legendary warrior was defeated with one blow. The old man wonders how the main character could possess such power. Michael sarcastically discusses who he is. A strong sound wave emanates from Johnson, which does not go unnoticed by anyone present, including the great warrior Larson. Michael arrogantly approaches the head of the family without even taking his hands out of his pockets, addressing him by name. Using his power, the young hero intimidates the elder Burke, repeating the threats that were previously directed at him. Michael recalls that the Johnson and Burke families have feuded for many years, even when the hero was not alive. Raphael's father orders his men to rid themselves of this insolent man. In the hope of increasing their salaries, the guards rush towards Michael, eager to be the first to reach the enemy. All the guards charge at Michael simultaneously, but he calmly deals with them in an instant. The main character states that ordinary people obey and leave, surveying his defeated rivals. Members of the Burke family humiliate themselves before Johnson, apologizing profusely and begging him to spare their lives, while Michael mocks their helplessness. The hero's eyes flash with the red flame of revenge, stating that debts must be repaid. Just in time to ensure no one gets hurt, security rushes in, ordering everyone to stop immediately. The chief officer, a pretty young girl in a tie and shirt with shoulder straps, asks Michael to move away from the people. Finding members of the Burke family on their knees, she wonders what her done this time. Encouraged by the arrival of the security service, the father, joyful and relieved, exclaims that they have been saved. In shock from what she witnessed, the officer notices the defeated legendary warrior of the Burke family, dragging himself on his knees across the floor. Michael grabs the head of the family by the hair and says that he was just bravely defending a girl from a prosperous family from the advances of this guy. The officer aims her gun at the protagonist, ordering him to let go of Burke's hair, or she will shoot. Meanwhile, Michael indifferently reflects on the fact that the captain is a woman. Young Johnson does not comply, receiving a second warning, and all the other armed personnel aim their weapons at him. Michael is prepared to deal with them too, tapping into his inner strength. At this moment, Jessica grabs his hand, apologizing and saying that he is not okay. He has cramps in his arms and legs. The lady invites him to stay here, to which he rightly questions why he needs to do that. The main characters argue. Jessica states that she will leave Johnson if he doesn't stop, to which he responds indignantly. At the same time, the head of the Burke family worries about the state of his hair. Mistress Nightingale sits down to signal to the security captain that he is surrendering, so they don't have to shoot. Michael is very upset that he wasn't allowed to deal with the security service. He asks what to do next, and Jessica suggests that she handle it. The director tells Johnson that he will have to travel with the captain, fill out a statement claiming he acted in self-defense, and then everything will be fine. He replies that he will be able to leave without any problems. It's already late at night. Another police officer enters Captain Jenkins' office, who was at the crime scene, and reports that they have watched the video footage more than 10 times. The subordinate explains that all the cameras show that Michael Johnson acted in self-defense, except for one. The girl asks what he means by doubts in one cell, to which he shows her the recording. The cameras depict that at first, the old man approaches the guy, but in the next frame, he is already on the floor, and what transpired in between is unknown. The captain reasons that despite their quick response, someone could have managed to erase the data from the CCTV camera. Despite Michael possibly possessing enormous hidden power, there is no evidence against him, so they only recognize it as self-defense and let him go. A satisfied Jessica and an indifferent Michael leave the police station into the clear night. The girl is glad they got off easy. The young hero realizes that if he leaves New York, the Burkes will get their dirty hands on her again. Michael decides he needs to find time to deal with them. They stroll through the city at night, engaging in pleasant conversation, and the guy offers to walk her home. Jessica starts to feel nervous. Johnson mentions that he just arrived in the city and hasn't found a place to stay for the night, so he'll likely have to spend the night on a bench in the park. To this, the girl replies that she has a free room in her apartment that she can allocate for Michael. Johnson begins to make vulgar jokes towards Mrs. Nightingale, which makes her very embarrassed. They continue their casual conversation, not noticing the car parked nearby. Inside the car is Captain Jenkins, already familiar to us, who is observing the couple and discussing Michael's strength, as all the bodyguards of the Burke family are former special forces. After considering the situation, she calls her brother and sends the CCTV footage, hoping he will help figure things out. The mountains rise to the level of the clouds. A solitary house with a pair of windows and an orange triangular roof has been constructed here. Captain Jenkins's brother, who has solid muscles, a scar on his face, and a collection of weapons on his back, complains about his sister, as she always seeks his assistance. He is outraged by the current situation, feeling that he is the captain of the Dragon Spirit Squad, not a film policeman. Nevertheless, he agrees to help his sister and retrieves the laptop with his strength. Brother Jenkins powers on the device and begins watching the videos sent by his sister. Smirking maliciously, he expresses his disdain for the bodyguard's inability to handle such a child. They should be dismissed. It's a disgrace. The captain of the Dragon Spirit notices footage of Michael dispatching opponents without even touching them. Realizing he possesses immense power, he remarks, "That skill is the pinnacle of opportunity, and Johnson is a true martial artist." Brother Jenkins calls her, expressing his eagerness to learn more about the guy in the video as soon as possible. A crescent moon hangs in the sky. There is light cloud cover over a panel house with its lights on, where Jessica resides. Mrs. Nightingale comes out of the bathroom, announcing that it is now free for Michael. Standing under the hot water in the shower, enveloped in steam, he begins to recall his past. After being saved from death, he thought it was a blessing, but an even worse nightmare began. On the very first day, without any explanation, The master threw him into a cage with a tiger that had been starving for 3 days. But in the end, Michael survived and overcame the tiger, marking only the beginning of his trials. The master sent him to perilous places, toughening his body and soul. Each time, he faced hopeless situations, and each time, he survived. He feels alive only when he is enveloped in anger and hatred. The last Johnson vows to find everyone who was at that ill-fated banquet, ensuring they will pay for everything. Thinking about how Michael has nothing to change into and remembering that she forgot to hide her underwear. In a panic, she runs to pick up what she left in the hope that the guy has not yet seen anything. The girl runs into the shower, asks Michael not to leave, but notices that he has already left and is standing in front of her, covering himself with a towel. In front of him, she cannot say what she wanted and begins to stutter, but he cannot understand what she wants. Asks to wait while he gets dressed and pulls off the towel. She runs away, slamming the door behind her, leaving the guy very bewildered that a very embarrassed Jessica is in her room, trying to prove that she didn't see anything unnecessary. Michael understands that she won't come out anymore, but that's good because he still needs to settle some things that it's late at night in the Burke family's luxurious villa with a swimming pool and the lights. On in the room, the father grinds his teeth from public humiliation. The son tells his father to stop, shaking with hatred as it makes him dizzy. Dad is very indignant that he shouts that because of his useless son, the legendary warrior Jack Larson is seriously injured, and only his grandfather can protect the family instead. The son, sobbing, offers to call his grandfather since he still does nothing, and the father says that he cannot leave it like this, so he will not calm down until he deals with that guy. Together they decide to call the elder Burke, and Raphael imagines how he will mock Michael, undressing Jessica in front of him. During the conversation, a dark figure appears, suspiciously reminiscent of Johnson, who wonders what they are talking about. The members of the Burke family present are in indescribable shock at the appearance of their newfound worst enemy. Michael sits casually on a chair and invites them to chat, while the others are afraid that he will kill them. The Burkles do not believe that he is capable of killing, but the protagonist begins to use his power against them, directing his supernatural power against his son. The father begins to tearfully beg Johnson to let him live, explaining that he has no claims against him, to which Michael just laughs madly, sarcastically, questioningly repeating the phrase about claims. The guy angrily reminds the father of the Burke family that 5 years ago there was a banquet, at which all the Johnsons were killed. Berkeley suddenly begins to realize that his opponent is the same boy who fell into the lake, and is surprised that he still survived. Michael slams his hand full of magical power into Berkeley Sr.'s face. The last Johnson, before killing Burke Sr., says that he is not an ancient warrior at all, but a god of medicine, and then laughs at his idea that a warrior is the peak of his capabilities. Michael uses his magic to deal with the man and shouts that he will deal with any one blow. That on this day, the eldest of the Burkes materializes above the mountain in extreme dissatisfaction. He is dressed in a kimono. Magical energy flows around him. He sees the death of his relatives, but does not know who dared to do it. The old man swears that he will find the one who did this, behead him, and chop him into thousands of pieces to AT Jessica's apartment. Michael meditates in the company of his power spirit and muses about how he needs to train more while being there. Johnson is holding a black stone in his hands, a gift from his father for the boy's 10th birthday. He still doesn't know what to do with it, and in a week the day of his parents' death will come, and therefore he will need to visit them. The guy notices a strange inscription in red on the stone. He suggests that blood should be dripped onto it. The stone jumps out of the hero's hands. The artifact begins to spread large waves of energy around itself, pressing on Michael, which makes his head spin that he won't last long. The young hero appears at the cemetery beaten and half-naked, surrounded only by a clear night, swords stuck in the ground, and tombstones. Michael comes to his senses, his head is pounding, and he notices a black fog around him. He ended up in the cemetery of rebirth, and does not understand what is happening there and how he ended up there. Magic swords glowing with violet fire from the sky begin to fall on him. Among the swords, red eyes with vague outlines of mouth appear. They seem to have bad intentions. Roth angrily says that being in the late stage of life, the hero dared to enter the rebirth cemetery. Multiple dark spirits order the guy to leave immediately if he wants to live. Michael sleeps on the bed in a cold sweat with a black stone in his hand and a sore head. He remembers last night and that his strength has not yet reached the threshold of entering the rebirth cemetery. There are exactly 100 tombstones, therefore 100 souls that a knock on the door interrupts his thoughts. It is Jessica who informs him that breakfast is ready and she is waiting for him. Finishing his reasoning, the guy goes out and sits down at the table, where Mrs. Nightingale is already there in a rich, delicious breakfast. Michael turns to Jessica that she cares about him so much that he doesn't want to leave and offers to wash the dishes, cook on his own, and warm his bed on cold winter nights. She notices that she has heated floors in winter, and if he wants to stay, it's not possible since she has monthly rent and household chores. The guy embarrassingly says that he doesn't have money now. Jessica suspects that he decided to live at her expense. Young Johnson grabs a napkin, begins to write something intensely on it, and then hands her a piece of paper with some kind of recipe. This rejuvenating product of one of my friends is considered low grade, but if you register it, then rent will not be a problem. Jessica laughs at his proposal and says that no company in the market would be interested in his proposal. Michael imagines the complete success of the product in his head. Then the director's phone rings. It turns out to be Sarah Walsh. Jessica takes off and runs to the meeting, leaving the guy alone in confusion, recommending that he find a job rather than think about the elixir. The central market where Michael is trying to sell his miraculous remedy, Miracle Hands, which cures all diseases. Passers-by notice the extravagant price of $100,000, and they clearly do not intend to buy this product for that kind of money, considering the guy a man and a charlatan. Suddenly, a pretty girl in a beret and a pink windbreaker appears in the crowd. She calls the seller to her, jokingly calling him a charlatan. Michael leaves with the girl. Upon arrival, they see a large, beautiful house. The guy again advertises his medicine, but the girl explains that this is not what she brought him here for. She introduces herself as Anna S. and says that she is extremely captivated by his desire to outwit everyone, to which Michael says that he has no time for games, and then he tries to leave. After that, she gives a card, the balance of which is the promised $100,000. And the main character changes his position and says that he is all at her disposal and will go through fire and water for her. Anna tells a sad story about her family and about the illness of her father, who only has a couple of days left to live, and she is also afraid that after his death her mother will do something stupid. She asks Michael to take his father to the mountains for pretend treatment to make it easier for his mother to bear his loss. And the guy notices that this miss is not very smart. Finding a benefit for himself, the hero promises to do everything in the best possible way. They enter the house and are greeted by the doctor, noting that now is not a good time to receive guests, since her father Robert Clark is ill. The guy and the girl enter the chambers, finding the older Clark looking sick. The girl tells her father that she has returned again. Michael realizes that things are very bad, that he sees that this man will soon leave for another world, since his chest is already filled with dead air, and when it reaches his head, nothing will help him. The daughter also sees her father's condition and tells Michael that they have been undergoing treatment for a long time, but not a single doctor could help him, and the latter said that Dad had one day to live. She asks the guy to help hide this fact from her mother at any cost. Then the mother comes into the room and asks if it is true that the father has one day to live, as the doctor told her. Some guy remarks that there is no point in hiding this information from his mother. He introduces himself as Percy Clark, Anna's brother, and says that he has already organized the funeral, which will take place in a picturesque place. The daughter complains about the indifference and callousness of her brother, with which he says this in front of his mother. But he says that his father has already suffered enough, and when Percy himself becomes the head of the family, he will not offend anyone. Michael understands that if his mother is gone, then there will be even more money for Percy, and Anna says that his father will never allow him to become the head of the family, telling his brother that he is just an animal. Percy curses his sister dirty, threatens her cruelly, and raises his hand to her. Michael defends the girl, attacking her brother, saying that her father is not dead yet, but this one has already planned everything. The doctor intervenes and states that the main character has just hit the future head of the Clark house and wonders who he even is. The god of medicine asks for a price of $10 million and promises to heal the father of the family. The mother asks her daughter whether that guy can really help her father, to which the girl lies, saying that she has known him for a very long time and is completely confident in him. Anna reasons that he simply has to cure Dad because he charged an incredible price for his services. Percy is clearly not happy with the intervention of some charlatan sent by his sister and feels from him a danger to himself and his plans that he does not care what happens next. The main thing is that he will definitely receive an inheritance. Michael approaches the bed of the father of the Clark family. There is no one else in the room. The guy decides that he will not let him die, since they have already met. Particles of his power begin to appear around him that he reports that the knowledge he has acquired about medicine should be enough to pull the old man out of the ghostly gates. Michael's eyes glow pinkish purple, and he recites a spell. Robert, to the loud exclamation of the guy who shouts "Get up," rises into the air. Black energy begins to come out of his eyes and mouth along with dark smoke. Michael realizes that this battle will be much more difficult than he expected since the man is enveloped in the energy of death. But the old man still has a pulse, and therefore all is not lost. Michael continues to fight with the dark force of death for the body of the father of the family. The dead spirit escapes from the man's body, and Michael catches it in his fist. The remnants of the dark essence forcefully splash out from the old man's body, heading into Michael's fist. Exhausted but alive, the old man falls onto his bed, and Michael argues that saving him was harder than killing any of his previous opponents. The god of medicine goes out the door to his waiting relatives and reports that everything is fine with their head of the family, and he will wake up soon. Percy can't believe his ears and the fact that his plans will go to waste. Anna doesn't understand whether her new acquaintance is deceiving them, and her mother cries from her newfound happiness. Michael asks to pay him. The enthusiastic wife of the reborn thanks him and gives him a card, telling him the password for it. But Percy, clearly dissatisfied with this set of circumstances, intervenes and brings his mother down to earth, reminding him that his father has an advanced stage of lung cancer, and it is not possible to cure him. Percy sticks his finger in the supposed charlatan's face, insisting that he must see the results first, to which the medicine god replies that it wasn't that easy for him to earn that money and grabs his finger. The next moment, Percy is already writhing on the floor in pain, and Michael says that he took the money as if for a consultation, and the master will wake up for 3 days, and after that they can turn to him again. And if they don't come, then death for their relative is already guaranteed. Percy, enraged, vows to finish Michael off, and the doctor tries to calm him down and says that he will help him sort everything out. Then, unexpectedly for everyone, Robert comes out to the family. The son is in incredible shock from what he sees, and mother and daughter are sincerely happy to see him. With his first words, the father asks where the doctor who saved his life is gone. The head of the Clarks thanks his wife and daughter for calling such a wonderful doctor for him, and sarcastically remarks to his son that he has done a lot of good things lately. The father angrily attacks his son, knowing full well what he really planned, and that Percy will never see his father's money again unless he finds the doctor who saved his life again. At the same time, a meeting of directors is taking place at the Apple office, where it is reported that shares are falling and the company is in a difficult situation and that the forecast will not change in the near future. Everyone is discussing that they need to launch a new line of cosmetics to avoid bankruptcy. Jessica sits in complete confusion, remembering Michael's recent dubious proposal that she's all nervous. Her chest itches. She tries to do something about it and finds Johnson's note. The paper contains a recipe for the very elixir that the young man was talking about. While Jessica is talking about how something like this can cost 10 million, a girl with glasses comes up behind her and snatches the piece of paper from her hands. Carmen wonders what the headmistress is hiding in her underwear, and then wonders what the recipe is. The girls begin to argue over the piece of paper, since Carmen does not want to give it back and mocks Jessica. Hinting that she got the recipe, the rival ignores Mrs. Nightingale's requests and tears the paper in front of her eyes. Jessica is incredibly angry and cannot say a word out of anger, and then pushes Carmen, shouting that it was her piece of paper. The others, noticing this altercation, completely ignore what is happening, since this is not the first time this has happened. The girls swear and angrily grab each other by the hair, swearing over the just destroyed piece of paper, and Carmen also insults Jessica, and she threatens to tear her painted face like that note. Some seemingly bossy woman appears and tells the girls to stop quarreling immediately. Apple President Sarah Walsh fully enters the room, her eyes glowing and the flames of her employees' fear of her person blazing behind her. Everyone calms down and the meeting begins. Everyone present listens carefully to the president's speech. She is very unhappy with the research and development department because their products remain the same for many years. Workers try to justify themselves by complaining about high competition and the fact that they have already searched through all the known recipes. But this does not help improve the effects of cosmetics. Sarah thinks in her head that it took her a long time to build her biggest cosmetics company, and therefore she can't give up so easily. Carmen sarcastically remarks that Jessica had some kind of recipe from a famous person. Everyone gets inspired when they hear the name of this person, wondering if she really has something like that. She reports that this is not entirely true, because this recipe was written by her friend. Jessica frantically shows the torn piece of paper, trying to say that her friend was just trying to make a joke. Everyone around is disappointed with the priceless formula written on a napkin dot, and Carmen is happy that she was able to humiliate her rival by making her look like a fool. Then one of the employees of the research and development department notices that the recipe is true, despite everything. All of the hatred of those gathered was directed at Carmen, since everyone saw that she was tearing this napkin to annoy Jessica. Sarah promises to fire the culprit, and if the recipe is not restored, then to prosecute her. Carmen begs for mercy, noting that she did not do this on purpose. The employee reports that with this formula, they will be able to make a real breakthrough in the industry, surpassing their competitors. The president is extremely inspired by the information received and orders an immediate search for the pieces and restoration of the elixir recipe. Carmen is shocked that Jessica had the same recipe, and she also helped introduce it.s. Oh, she freezes on the spot, and Sarah tells her to go to the shopping department. They will look after her. The director returns home and calls Michael, but he seems to have already left. Jessica sits on the sofa in thought and wonders whether her new friend, who wrote that very recipe, will return. Michael amazes the girl with his actions, because in fact he is a stranger who spent the night with her and wrote the right recipe. She even begins to think that he is the hidden ruler of the world that someone's hand falls on her head. She begins to scream in horror, covered in cold sweat, and behind her is a guy whom the heroine was thinking about just recently, who asks why she called him and how she is doing. Jessica asks when he managed to return. The guy says that he had just heard her call. They talk. The girl is incredibly embarrassed. She asks to write the recipe for the elixir for her again, since the previous formula was spoiled. Michael reports that the recipe is not that good yet, that it's just a note. The guy offers to write another recipe. The guy is about to go to bed, and therefore says that Jessica should also go to bed early today. But she tries to continue the conversation, grabbing his hand. Michael jokes that he is ready to listen to her if she asks him as a man, to which the girl says that she can still call the police. Jessica turns the conversation to the topic of his search for Sarah Walsh, and says that she herself wants to see him. The guy with a dissatisfied face repeats Sarah Walsh's name and says that he won't go to her. He can't, he's busy. The girl tries to remind him that he went through a lot to get to her, and now he himself is resisting. He quips that yesterday his love was ignored, so today it's his turn to be hard to touch. Michael insists that Mrs. Walsh call him herself tomorrow, since he is not in the mood to go to her, after which he ends the conversation and goes to bed. Then Jessica's phone rings that it turns out to be her boss, who is interested in what she was able to get from Michael. Sarah says she'll think about contacting him herself, but for now, let the director keep an eye on the guy. The president, having hung up the phone, talks about what an unusual young man she came across, who first makes a scene in the office and then does not dare to come. The next morning, Michael enters the Temple of Humanity, pondering the strange appearance for the pharmacy. Michael notices a long line at the pharmacy, so he decides that he needs to look around first at the largest pharmacy he has ever seen. Michael stops next to a huge painting, which he really likes, even though he understands that it is just a fake. Michael notices that someone behind him asks where this beetle came from, turns around, and sees in front of him Lily and Jacob Sanders, who are grandfather and granddaughter. The girl is indignant that the guy called their family's treasure a fake, noting that she doesn't may be so, since it was bought in the capital. Jacob delicately notes that several collectors have noticed the authenticity of the image, to which Johnson replies that this only proves that they and the collectors are uneducated. He notices the flaw, but dismissively says that the copy is very good, and therefore they can continue to deceive people, and then sadly remarks that he expected to find something worthwhile here. The granddaughter begins to glow with magical turquoise energy, and the grandfather tries to stop her, reminding her that this is a simple person. She can't let the bastard be so arrogant, and prepares a magical strike that's swinging her leg at him. Grandfather shouts that ancient martial arts cannot be used against mere mortals. Michael, without much difficulty, grabs the girl by the leg with which she wanted to inflict a magical blow, disdainfully wondering if this is really all she is capable of. Lily in her head is shocked that the guy so easily defended himself from her technique, with which she easily knocks out 2 bags of sand. The main character asks if she has calmed down and begins to tickle her recently captured leg. The tickling makes the girl lose concentration and falls to the floor, leaving her grandfather shocked by what is happening. Michael jokes and laughs at the girl's abilities, but says that a couple more years of training could fix everything. Lily Sanders screams in rage at her attacker, who remains completely indifferent. The adult notices that he coped with her reception without any problems, and therefore only with his mercy. She is still healthy, and she complains that he simply pissed her off, so she would have easily won. Michael hints that he can repeat it at full strength by showing her terrifying form behind him. The girl wants to run away. The grandfather apologizes for her behavior and also orders his granddaughter to apologize. After this, the old man asks Michael to tell him more about this picture, since he is already too old for such riddles. Michael, using his superpower, shows the old man why he said that the painting is a fake, and also reports that sometimes it is very difficult to distinguish a fake from the original. Besides, the author of this work tried very hard and not for a small amount. After the story, the hero receives medicine from the hands of Lilia Sanders herself, the granddaughter of the chief physician. Michael offends the girl, to which she flares up again and declares that today is simply not her day, and in general her grandfather interrupted her. Jacob puts the girl in her place, saying that even her master cannot learn the powers that the guy standing in front of them has. Michael orders more medicine. They say they will do it for free for the inconvenience, but the guy insists on paying. Johnson says that he has enough money to pay, and the girl makes faces at him in order to somehow offend him. Jacob tries to explain to his granddaughter that this warrior is from a famous family, and if it's really him, then the city will be uneasy in the near future. Michael walks through the city and remembers his plan for revenge and that it is time to prepare for it. But first he realizes that he needs to deal with the annoying fly, meaning the suspicious guy behind him. Meanwhile, in the pharmacy, the argument continues about who this guy was here just now. The girl does not believe that he is special, and the grandfather says that he is, however, stronger than her master. There are rumors that he can destroy entire troops with his bare hands. All weapons are powerless against him, and people are just ants to him. The girl says that he is too young, but grandfather continues that he is not even a master, but something more powerful. You can't give him more than 20, and he already has so many opponents, so we shouldn't become one of them. The Clark family messenger is happy to have found the one he was ordered to find so quickly. Michael turned into an ally. The guy thinks that he was noticed, but it turns out that his target has completely disappeared. The guy is still confused, but Johnson is already diving on top of him, using his magical power. The servant finds himself under Michael. The young hero tells the servant not to force him to kill. The pursuer asks for mercy, promising to tell everything he knows. The guy turns out to be a private detective and tells everything about himself, his family, profession, hobbies, complains about living conditions, says that he took out a loan. Michael explodes and shouts that he needs the name of the customer and not all the nonsense he just heard. The detective says that the father of the Clark family is looking for him everywhere and has offered a reward of $1 million for his capture. Michael remembers about the untreated old man. The detective simultaneously offers a lucrative offer, asking him to go with him to the customer. The hero leaves indifferently, recommending the guy not to do this kind of thing again if he wants to live. The character returns to the house and notices a very nicely dressed Jessica there, who is getting ready to go somewhere. She tells Michael that they are going shopping together to get new clothes for him and a phone to keep in touch. That he says that she shouldn't spend so much money on him, and Jessica tells him not to worry about it. Taking his arm and heading to the store, Michael is standing in his new dress suit that IT suits him very well, perfectly complementing his appearance. Jessica embarrassingly remarks that he looks very attractive in this suit. She, winking, says that in this form, it's not even a shame to pick up students, and also wonders if he has anyone and talks about her friend's older sister as a real beauty, to which the hero sharply replies that he doesn't have one, that there will never be a girl. The girl suspects that Michael has never fallen in love and that he is generally a virgin, but he remembers in his head that he clearly had no time for this. For 5 years he honed his skills, and therefore he had no time or desire to communicate with girls. But once upon a time, when his family was still alive, he liked Lucy Vox, who was the most beautiful in school. He even wrote her a love letter, which she replied to. The answer was a request to admit this in front of everyone at the line at school, which he did in his naivety, and she blew him off in front of everyone that IT was a trap, and he fell for it. Then he realized that girls are a waste of time and resources and not worth it. The guy is burning with rage, and the girl tells him not to worry so much, because she didn't have anyone either, but life is still wonderful. They go to another store, talking peacefully, and on the way they meet Maria, a friend of Michael's first love. Dahlberg ignores the hero, turning only to Jessica, noting that she has not changed at all and seems to have a boyfriend. Then she notices that he looks suspiciously like Michael Johnson. Next, She tells her friend the story that the hero recently recalled. After searching the internet, they find out that the victim of their dispute has already died along with his entire family. Michael flares up and wants to shut up the stupid old acquaintance along with her vile boyfriend. Jessica notices the guy's condition, grabs his hand, and tells him not to pay attention to them and takes him further to the shops. Insults fly in the back. Michael says that he could get rid of them without any problems, to which Jessica gently hints that the guy was already at the station a couple of days ago. They notice a very cool suit that would be great for Michael. The consultant notices them and says that they made a great choice, and the price is only $360,000. Jessica realizes that she doesn't have enough money on her card, so she tries to pretend that the suit doesn't suit him at all. Maria Dahlberg appears again and speaks, insulting Mrs. Walsh, to which she tries to justify herself. Jessica is very angry and wants to hit her friend, but she threatens with her connections and says that there will be consequences. Michael can hold back his emotions and gives this pathetic woman a juicy slap, telling her that she'd better shut her mouth forever. Everyone is shocked by this act. Jessica is surprised today, an old friend is surprised that she was hit. Her boyfriend is very confused. The bitch's boyfriend threatens with his status, simultaneously performing some actions on the phone, saying that such poor people as they can only dream of money like his that I in the midst of an argument. Percy appears with his father, who are confused by what they saw in the store. He wonders how someone dared threaten the god of medicine using his own company's name. The boyfriend cannot believe his eyes that he sees in front of him the president of the company. The president ignores the clinging, heading straight to his savior, thanking him for saving his life in sincere gratitude. Everyone around is shocked by the relationship between the rich man and Michael, especially Jessica, who thought that her friend had no power. Michael disappointingly reports that, unfortunately, most of his family is not happy to learn that he survived, but the master says that his son is ready to improve and orders him to kneel before Johnson. The guy, sitting on his knees, apologizes for the inconvenience caused to the god of medicine. Those familiar with Percy are shocked by his behavior, because he has always been very proud and incapable of such things. Michael pointedly ignores everyone around him and turns to Jessica, saying that it's time for them to go to some women's clothing store to buy her something too. The father punishes his son, believing that Michael's neglect is caused by his behavior, and also informs him that if he never earns forgiveness, he will spend the rest of his life on his knees. The bitch's boyfriend notices that the president of the company made a mistake about something, to which he slaps the slanderer in the face and says that he and his father no longer work there. Maria Dahlberg notices that they crossed the path of the wrong person, and her boyfriend is crying because he has nothing more, and now he is the rogue here. Jessica and Michael leave the store with a bag of clothes. The girl happily reports that the guy couldn't pay the rent, but allows himself to buy clothes for her. Mrs. Nightingale is very touched by Johnson's behavior, and he knows that she took pity on him, buying only goods at a discount. Although everyone understands that he has millions in his hands, she really is a good girl. The clerk's father, Robert, catches up with him that he asks the young people to wait for him. With a helpful face, he invites them to take a walk. Behind him are two of his employees with their arms full of boxes with expensive brands. Michael asks what he needs, and the head of the clerk says that he does not need Johnson, but the girl next to him. He says that he has gifts for her and hands over everything that his servants have behind his back. Jessica realizes that these are the things she wanted to buy, but for which she did not have enough money. Johnson understands that Robert is not a mistake, and therefore decided to come from the side of a girl who is easier to please. Michael notices his interest in saving his life, and therefore says that he will come to them tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, giving him one last chance. Robert is very happy that Johnson paid attention to him and reports that he and his company are always ready to provide him with any help. An unknown mansion, in which Dahlberg tries to prove to Lucy Vox that she saw Michael Josnin, who has not changed at all in appearance, but his character has undergone major changes. The girl is very interested in the words spoken by her friend, so she listens very carefully to the detailed story about the guy's adventures. Lucy notes that a young man must have very great status and power for Robert Clark to crucify himself in front of him, and if Michael had survived, he would have been homeless. So this whole situation is simply unthinkable. The girl reflects that 5 years ago, the Johnson family was weaker than the Vox family. That is so even if he survived, the situation cannot be equal to hers. The couple gets to Jessica's house, She is very interested in how Johnson knows Robert Clark, because she could only dream of buying such expensive things, interrupting her enthusiastic thoughts. The girl remembers work and wonders if Michael will meet with the president of her company. Jessica teases the main character, but he calmly parries her attack and sits down to watch TV. That IT is reported on television that 2 male bodies were found in the same mansion. The report said that the dead were Raphael Burke and his stern father. The police confirmed that it was a brutal and premeditated murder. Jessica, horrified, says that, of course, she would like to take revenge on them, but obviously not in such a harsh way. Michael reports that bad people tend to make enemies for themselves, and therefore this is a common occurrence, and also indifferently says that this is his doing. Mrs. Nightingale does not believe that her friend could do this, because being able to fight well is not the same as being able to kill. She rejects the guy's words, changes the subject, and goes in a cheerful mood to try on new things that she has just purchased. Michael goes for a walk through the quiet city at night, talks about the medications he has purchased, and realizes that now he has everything he needs to train his skills. During his thoughts, he meets Captain Jenkins, who is already familiar to him, and she is glad that they have finally met again. The hero remembers who it is and says that he is busy now and is trying to leave. The officer, as if to the point, asks if the guy has heard about what happened to the Burke family, even if she doesn't believe that it could be him. But the Johnson family has gone into oblivion. Michael interrupts her by grabbing her by the neck, sparkling with his power, and asking what she is hinting at. A frightened Jenkins realizes that despite her martial arts training, she can handle the guy, and also says that there are still some things they need to discuss, but she wanted to do it over dinner. That he refuses and leaves, saying that he has other plans for this time, and the girl is trying to catch her breath after the capture. She argues that the guy has achieved perfection in ancient martial arts, but even in 5 years, it is impossible to achieve such a result. What happened to him during this time? Michael is standing in the kitchen of Jessica's apartment, chopping ingredients for something that he plans to use Nightingale's microwave while she sleeps to practice alchemy. Something goes wrong, and the guy realizes that the ingredients the doctor gave him have already gone bad. But at the same time, he still manages to create at least 5 red spheres, although he should have gotten much more. But this should be enough. That in the morning, Jessica wakes up from some noise and goes sleepy into the living room, yawning heavily. In the hallway, she discovers Michael, who is intensively getting ready for something. He says that he is going for an examination, and if necessary, he will gladly accept her call. She says that she would not call him a doctor because he talks some kind of nonsense all day long, and argues that he knew the recipe and therefore can be able to heal. Then she remembers the incident that happened with the Johnson family. She does not understand why trouble befell such a good family. Each member was as kind as possible. Anna is standing somewhere in the middle of the city and seems to be actively waiting for someone. Some guys are thinking about who such a beauty might be waiting for, a friend or a boyfriend. One of them says that a rich girl can't wait for a guy like that. She can only drive around in an expensive car with a security guard. The second agrees that there is something in this, meaning that a third appears and says that she is clearly not waiting for one of them. But they are intrigued by his words. Michael says that he doesn't understand women, but this girl is clearly waiting for him and not anyone else. The guys begin to mock Johnson, since a beauty with such a luxurious car cannot wait for a freak like him. But at that moment, Anna notices him and calls the main character. Anna runs up to Michael and is genuinely happy to see him, leaving the other 2 guys confused. She brings the hero to her home in a luxurious living room, where Robert Clark and his wife are already waiting for them. Michael hands over 5 already blackened balls, and the patient wonders if this can really be eaten and asks if there is any alternative, such as acupuncture or a decoction. The hero says that you need to eat all 5 of them at once. Robert obeys and throws them into his mouth. The father of the family immediately flares up with magical energy, thus shocking those around him. Robert feels full of strength and energy under the influence of a large number of medicinal herbs. The completely revived head of the family almost flies into the sky with joy. His relatives think that he fed him stimulants. Robert says that he will be grateful to Dr. Johnson all his life, giving him $100 million for his help. Michael says that this is just a deal and there is no need to exalt him too high. The restless father of the family reports that he has an empty property. Dutton gives the key card to Michael for use, and also hopes that the doctor will have time to have dinner together. Michael thinks that he can store his medicine in the empty apartment, and Clark himself can be useful to him because he understands business, and therefore he can help with the company taken away from the Johnsons. The hero happily accepts the key card and makes an appointment for dinner tomorrow evening, and Robert agrees. The young god of medicine says goodbye and silently leaves. Michael stands next to a massive pile of medicines that the eldest in the dynasty of doctors has prepared for him. The recipient is satisfied with the quality of the resources for his work and thinks that these doctors are successfully maintaining the standards. The seller sets the price at $5 million, remembering that Johnson won't accept the goods for free. However, Michael knows that the price is at least twice that. The main character wonders where his granddaughter has gone, and upon learning that she has gone to the mountains with the master, Michael hands the old man an incomprehensible piece of paper for his granddaughter, instructing him to give it to the master if she doesn't understand what it's for. Michael then asks where he can purchase alchemical supplies in New York, and the old man wonders how this young gentleman even knows about alchemy. The pharmacist points out that alchemists disappeared thousands of years ago, leaving only a few pills on the market, but they are priceless. It used to be that a family with an alchemist could become one of the leading families in just 3 years. The old man is astonished by Johnson's capabilities, but jokes that he doesn't understand anything about alchemy. He just likes the aesthetic appearance of alchemical furnaces. After learning that the stove will be available at auction in 5 days, Michael asks to be contacted and departs. Just then, Lilia Sanders unexpectedly returns with her master and calls out to her grandfather that they have come back. First, the grandfather asks if his granddaughter behaved well, and then he mentions that Michael Johnson was here again, and she offended him last time, and this time she ran away. The girl insists that her master is cooler, but the teacher tells her not to say anything foolish, as her grandfather doesn't indulge in meaningless speeches. Jacob informs her that Johnson left something for her and hands her the piece of paper. The granddaughter, of course, can't understand what is written there. She discards the paper, claiming that the handwriting is terrible. The note ends up in the hands of the master, who wonders if her grandfather mixed something up and whether it is really meant for Lilia. The master determines that this note is from a true professional and nervously asks Jacob to arrange a meeting with this young man. He recalls that even in his youth, he trained hard, and his strength was of astronomical proportions. After a long time, he noticed something even touched his internal organs. The girl says this explains the discomfort she feels after training. The master reassures her that there's nothing wrong because he's keeping an eye on her to ensure nothing happens. He says that if he continues to train himself, he might die. But Johnson wrote on that piece of paper a remedy that will help him become even stronger. The girl thinks that even if the master calls this guy a nobleman, she doesn't understand who he really is. Michael stands near a huge villa and realizes this is exactly what Robert Clark has prepared for him, rather than the luxury room he was expecting. He didn't think it would be so large. He is simply delighted with the apartment provided to him and praises the furniture, noticing that he likes Robert more and more. He thinks it feels a bit lonely for one person, so he decides to invite Jessica over as well. At the same time, Jessica calls Johnson to say that she needs to return home to her parents for a while, so they won't be meeting in the evening, which makes Michael a little worried about her. The hero reflects that his previous house used to be smaller, but it always had a harmonious and lively atmosphere. Michael remembers that tomorrow is the anniversary of his parents' death. He promises to avenge them. He has already managed to escape the whirlpool, which means revenge is just around the corner. Michael hears the doorbell ring and goes out to receive the large quantities of medications brought for him, noting that he can easily fit all his purchases in this building. Elder Sanders personally calls him, along with his granddaughter and the master, informing him that they are ready to help him at any time if he needs anything else. Here, Michael notices the ancient warrior who has come with them, greets him, and lightly swears. Michael politely invites them to his new mansion, wondering who this great warrior is. The warrior falls to his knees, introduces himself as Jason Reynolds, and thanks Michael for saving his life. Lilia is shocked that her master is bowing down in front of him. The master refers to him as a benefactor and a great master, to which Johnson wonders why they call him that and scratches his head. Reynolds is very surprised, thinking that he is even stronger than the great master, since this is basic knowledge that everyone has. Michael pretends to be a beginner, claiming he doesn't understand the classification of martial arts ranks accepted here. The master is pleased that he can teach such a warrior something and enthusiastically explains that there are 4 levels: external force, internal force, master of half transformation, and master of transformation. Jason tells Michael that he is at the highest level and belongs to the class of transformation masters, with countless martial artists looking up to him. The idea pops into the main character's head that his strength is far beyond the classifications accepted in New York, which goes without saying. Remembering the correct classification, Michael realizes that he is approximately on the same level as the strongest current masters in America, though he is still very far from the true peak. Johnson believes he has underestimated the masters, so he asks Reynolds how many of them there are and whether there might be someone stronger than him nearby. Jason reveals that he doesn't know the exact number, but most of them are connected to the Hodges family. He also mentions that despite the current era of advancing technology, those who truly control their rights are well aware of martial arts. Jacob states that there are 4 main families in New York, and the 4th of them is the Burke family. It's unfortunate that they were recently killed, but their elder was a master who secretly practiced the arts. Michael recalls that just before his death, Raphael's father threatened him with violence from the eldest in the family, calling him a strong master. Among the other families, Lucy Vox made the most impression. If not for her humiliation, he wouldn't have received the brand of a worthless person. He declares to himself that he will soon deal with her, showing who the real non-entity is here. Reynolds, sensing a strong aura of hatred surrounding Johnson, wonders how much blood Michael has on his hands at such a young age. The main character walks through the evening city, with cheerful crowds milling about, busy with their evening leisure. He talks about how Jessica isn't answering his calls and fears something might have happened to her. Michael's stomach insists they need to find somewhere to eat. He walks into his old friend's diner, reminiscing about the past that united them and how the food was always delicious there. Even when he was deeply depressed, his friend was always there for him. But it turns out that there is no one in the stall. Still, Michael decides to order something. He asks for a signature kebab and a bottle of something but is refused, as the owner is already closing the stall and recommends he eat elsewhere. A woman familiar to Michael tells him that they are moving to a new place tomorrow, where he can visit them. The hero is sincerely surprised that they are changing place after so much time and is wary at the sight of an abrasion on the face of a friend. A man appears out of nowhere and brings the order to the young man, saying that there is no need to drive away the guests. The guy also recognizes his face and is even more worried. Since he was also beaten, and they have always been friendly, there can be no violence in their family. The hero salivates at the sight of the delicious kebab, which he associates with childhood. Michael is enjoying the dish when a chair flies past him, which he successfully smashes with his magical powers. Already in a fighting mood, 3 big guys burst into the cafe, who notice that the guy is not a failure, but today they need a store, so he can finish eating and leave. The owners of the establishment had clearly already met these guys, fearfully calling the leader Tiger. The Tiger runs into an old acquaintance of Michael, forcing him to pay for security, starting a skirmish. The big man threatens that he knows where the cafe is moving, and therefore threatens to destroy it too if he doesn't have $50,000. The Tiger condescendingly recommends that Michael leave, and the hero sharply replies that it would be better for them to leave. The big man is irritated by such insolence and is about to show Johnson that he cannot be joked with like that, but Michael knocks the wind out of him with one blow. The owners of the establishment are shocked that this guy knocked out the creator of their problems so quickly that they didn't even have time to see, and Michael wonders if everything is fine with them. The Tiger comes to his senses and, with a wild scream, attacks the young small business advocate in a sharp counterattack. Michael counters the attack with a sharp uppercut that sends his opponent's head crashing into the ceiling, landing him on the next floor. Tiger's henchmen are shocked by what they saw and don't know what to do now, looking at their boss, who is stuck in the ceiling. The main character, spraying his aura everywhere, clearly explains to the extortionists that he promises to give them a good reception if they show up here again. The gang sits on their knees in front of Michael, begging for mercy and promising that they will never allow themselves to do this again and will not dare to disturb the owners of this establishment. And then they run away, released by the young guy. Johnson examines the mess in the cafe that was left after their fight and thinks that it would be good to force the villains to clean up here before letting them go. The owners ask the guy if he is Michael by chance, to which he joyfully remarks that they forgot him. Everyone is glad that they met an old friend. The owners of the establishment notice that Johnson has always been different from the other visitors, so they could not forget him. Michael returns to Jessica's apartment late in the evening and asks if she is home. The hero finds the girl and asks why she didn't answer his calls. Then she turns to face Johnson, and it turns out that it is not Jessica at all, but Sarah Walsh herself. Michael doesn't quite understand what this girl forgot at his friend's house, but she comes up with an excuse, to which she asks why he lives here. He says that Jessica sheltered him for a while. Michael notices that Sarah looks great and doesn't need anyone's help at all. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.